Hello, everyone. Oh my goodness, it's episode 10. We're here. I'm here with my co host, Maya Turner. How are you doing, Maya?
I'm so excited. Something is gonna happen this weekend.
Really? What's going on this weekend, Maya?
Well, first, it's the Teach the Teacher at HealthCon, and then I'll be arriving at HealthCon Friday, so it's gonna be a wonderful weekend because HealthCon starts on Sunday.
Yay! I know I fly in on Sunday, so I'm gonna miss some of the festivities. But I am excited when my good friend Tara is going to pick me up from the airport and bring me, so I don't have to get an Uber. I'm gonna have front door service. Super excited.
Nice.
I think I might hit the pool on Sunday before all the craziness starts.
Yeah, it's going to be a very, very busy time, but I think at the end of the day, it's still about connection because hey, that's how we met, right? You know, it's
Absolutely.
it's how we met, and that was 2 years ago. Can you believe that?
I
Two
know
years ago.
2023. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Nashville.
and
It was Nashville.
yeah, yep. At it was in Nashville. Yep.
Hmm.
And it's so odd, we we've been around each other for all this time, but we've never met, and we never have been able to attend each other's sessions because it was always at the same time or it was filled. It was just like it's insane. But
Yes,
I'm really
yes.
excited to be there, though. I'm really excited to see you again at HealthCon. It'll bring up some nostalgia for sure.
Absolutely. And everyone, so you know, Miss Maya Turner is on the AAPC advisory board. So she's going to be a busy gal. And I'm not sure if they're going to put her in my room, but I hope so. If not,
Right.
I will hopefully see you at some point running around on stage somewhere. I'm sure you'll be involved in lots of things. So I'm excited for you. And
Yes.
we're just going to soak up so much knowledge. I'm just so excited, not only to speak about spinal fusion, which of course so passionate about orthopedic spine. I don't know, it became this love of mine years ago when I started doing it, and so I was like, I finally get to go and talk about a coding topic again. The last couple of years, I've been talking about non-coding topics, so it's nice to get to talk about documentation, and coding. So if you're in orthopedic spine, please attend my session inside of Spinal Fusion. It's going to be fun. And that evening, we get to go to Disney. So it's going to be a good day.
Yes. Yes. It's going to be a good day. It's going to be a great day. Um, and
Oh, I think you're muted, Maya.
am I muted? Hold on.
One sec, everyone.
No.
Is it me or is it her? Maybe it's me.
Yeah,
Can you hear me
I
okay?
mean, my mic is still on. Yeah, I can
Yeah, I
still
can't
hear
hear you.
you. Oh.
It's so weird. Huh.
Oh. Audio. Let me go to cloud. Testing,
I'll just
testing.
sit
My
in.
mic is on. My mic is on. My mic is on. Hold on. My speakers and stuff is going.
Yeah, that is crazy. Sorry, guys. There is some technical difficulty here between the two of us communicating. So,
But I can hear you though.
just a
But you can't
second.
hear me?
I'm going to. I'm gonna leave and come back in and see if that helps me.
Okay. In the interim, while we're live, I want to just take some time to really thank Jennifer because she has recently become a sponsor for a project extern. Um, and I think that's really important to be a sponsor for Project Extern. And lots of details are going to be coming with that soon.
Yeah.
So we just got to note that we can hear you. They can hear us both. So I'm not really sure. Check the messages.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, they both can hear
So
us.
can you leave and come back in?
Sure. Hold on one second.
Try that. That's weird. We can't hear each other, but you guys can hear us. That's crazy. Okay, here we go.
Okay.
Here we go. It's back. I don't know. It was weird. Crazy stuff. All right, guys. Sorry about that. You guys could hear us, but we couldn't hear each other. At least I couldn't hear Maya. And so, well, that was crazy. Well, we're back. So, anyway, we're excited to be here talking to everyone. So, let's get into the show. Let's talk about top payer myths. So, this really is designed to help us kind of squash some of those myths about claims and payers in general, because they're not the bad guy. I mean, I think that we have a lot of stress in our lives because of the payers, right? In our jobs. But a lot of it we do to ourselves. So we definitely want to make sure we understand. And I want to shout out once more to our amazing client, Fox Valley Medical Associates, who we just got back from. Of course, I was there in Chicago with Maya, and we were having a great conversation with them. And we really just talked a lot about what the issues were they had and the huge turnaround. And to us, I mean, at least to me, it was things that we know to do and that most practices should know to do. But there was a lot of disconnection. And by making small changes, they increase their revenue. Like Maya, what was it? How much did they increase their revenue?
It was -7, and now it's up 13%, and that's a 20% increase. And that's over a 6-month period. And that's not even, and we're not even done yet. We just scratched the surface. So it's all about
Absolutely.
interpretation and knowledge, right? And that's what we were there for. We provided an education to assist with some of the changes. They realized that some of the claims they were getting denied was because some claims were, or the codes that they were using were outdated. So it's important for providers to not only attend, updates when it comes to coding, because it's going to adversely affect your revenue if you don't. So having someone that's going to be that ambassador, that go-to person for coding changes and updates is going to be key. And that's why Jennifer and I are so, relevant to the office and for that practice revenue to have increased in that short amount of time. And he made some really big numbers. We said it was 6 million, but now they have a potential to meet 21 million, based upon our help. And we're going to be doing a lot of training for them. And I think it's just really relevant to stay in tune with training in that type of environment, because if you don't know, you don't know what you don't know until it
Mhm.
affects something that is going to make a difference in getting that training, getting that coding book. So resource revenue equals resources for practices.
Yes.
So
Exactly, exactly. And primary care is one of the specialties they have. They're multi-specialty, and they use a lot of the same codes. There are a lot of the services that Medicare has created in the last, well, even just this 2025, the final rule added some nuances that are helpful for services they were already performing, but now they can actually get paid for them in a
yes.
lot of great ways. We educated, excuse me, on excuse me, we educated on some of the telehealth revisions, obviously making sure they're aware of the compliance issues there, because of course most of these practices are already doing telehealth, just making sure they're doing it right.
They're
And
spoon feeding
then,
us.
oh, I know, right? The spoon feeding's got to stop, but hey, here we are. We're just, it's we can't make the changes ourselves. We just roll with it, right? We just make sure
Yes.
that we understand them. And then thinking about just in primary care, I see on LinkedIn everywhere. There are certain physicians on LinkedIn that advertise how awesome it is to be a concierge physician and having control of your revenue, which is great. But if that's not something you want to do, you can be successful. Because what I'm finding is a lot of physicians leave hospitals because they feel like they're not heard, and they can't always trust that their revenue is taken care of. And when you go into private practice, you hope you can do it on your own, right? But this is a true testament to the fact that you can. Look how lucrative their organization has become, and they're getting paid by the insurance, guys. This is not self-pay. It's not concierge primary care. This is insurance-based primary care. And of course other specialties, they're getting paid from the insurance what they're owed. And it's doable. Look at what they're doing.
Yeah, and I think also, and this is kind of tying into our our topic for today is that it's not about insurances intentionally want to deny, even though we discussed weaponization of the healthcare, but it's also about knowledge, right? And understanding your policy and understanding your contract, right? And at this day and age, it's not about just being seen at the office. It's the peripheral management, everything that happens outside of the office that can increase the revenue. Again, I can't say enough how um, revenue equals resources, right? And the
Mhm.
more knowledgeable you are about the revenue, the resources that you can obtain based upon that is getting that extra MA, getting that extra, automated process for your EMR for them to register. So the more you become advanced in your healthcare and your EMR and your practice management system, you're able to implement more processes that make it more streamlined. But if you can think you can do it on your own, you're sadly mistaken. You need people like Jennifer and I to help outline some of the things that you've missed. You know, as a business owner, your focus should be on running the business, not making sure that that there are other things that permit you or prohibit you, I should say, from understanding what the revenue opportunities are, and that's where we come in.
Absolutely. So let's get into myth number one, guys. Insurance companies always deny claims to save money. I've heard that one. And
Yeah,
that might be true in some cases. Obviously, it does save money if you don't pay something, right?
right.
Um, but we've discussed some of the reasons already why practices are getting denials. It's on their own doing. They're not paying attention to the policies that are clear. Now, some policies aren't clear, but I'm seeing clear violations of clear policies.
Yeah,
And it's
yeah.
obvious they weren't read, they weren't followed through on, or maybe they were just so busy they didn't think it was necessary and just wanted to just throw it against the wall and see what happens.
Yeah. And I think, Jennifer, this goes back to what I was stating, right? Revenue creates resources, right? If you understood the revenue and have the tools to interpret the policies, right? This is why the physician should be focused on seeing patients, and he employs people to interpret these little idiosyncrasies to make the difference on the integrity of the dollar at the office. I can't say enough that knowledge is power when it comes to running a practice. The people that you have that have knowledge is the ability for them to create the revenue and understand how to obtain it, and most of all, how to keep it. Period. That's it.
Exactly.
That's all. Yeah.
So if you're a physician or maybe an administrator, walk up to the office manager who's in charge of billing and ask them to run a specific report for you that you need and have them explain it to you. That's the quickest way to know you have quality staff that can do it. And I'm telling you, there's a lot of people out there I've met that cannot explain it. And we are going to dissect KPIs in a future episode. So we're going to talk about and we're going to kind of educate everybody about what these different metrics mean on a report that are so
Woo!
life-saving. And they're
Preach,
just very basic.
sister.
Preach. I'm preaching. I'm on my pulpit right now. Here we go. Well, let's get into myth number two, guys. The payer always has the final say in the reimbursement amount.
No,
No, that's
no,
a
no,
false.
no, no, no. Yeah, that's a biggie. Um, I can't say enough that if you understood your policies, you would understand your payment. Period. But you gotta have the what's the word? The payment whisperer to understand what your payment is. Because if you don't, you're gonna be lost in the abyss of underpayments.
Yes. Yes,
Yes.
and I had a physician contact me recently because we're doing their credentialing, and I don't do contracting for them, but he asked me, he's like, "Why am I only getting paid $60 for a 99213 for Blue Cross Blue Shield?"
And that's under
And
Medicare.
that's under Medicare. Like, that's crazy. It's like 100 for their region. It was on the West Coast, Meridian. It was $109, I think, was the Medicare rate for 99213. And so, like, that's crazy.
Yeah, and I think there's a difference too. I mean, even though, I mean, we don't know what kind of policy he currently has active, but you also have to think about if it's an HMO, right, or if it's a PPO, because that also negates if they get the capitation that's involved with that, because a lot of times that weighs in on how much the physician can get paid in addition to the standard office service. And then you also got to think about the copayment that's involved, because sometimes they factor all of those things in into your total payment. So the contract should also negate how this occurs, right? If you're getting $60 and you're also going to get $50 for each visit plus capitation, then that will make the difference on you getting $60 versus $100 when it comes to
Right.
that payment. But all of that is going to make a huge difference on how you read your explanation of benefits and how you interpret your contracts, because that is a huge deal. And one of the things that people always fail to do is understand the contractual obligation at the end of the day.
Absolutely. Yes,
Yeah.
and there may be instances where maybe you didn't fully understand what your contracted rates were. And yes, sometimes they don't pay what they're supposed to pay according to the contract. So there's various ways you can do your research, right? So we're going to help this organization figure out. First of all, I mean, I don't have the EOB in front of me. It's very likely that maybe they already collected the patient copay and they weren't aware that that was going to be combined and that's their actual full payment for that service. But it could also be that because they're in an what's it called, ACO,
Independent. Oh, ACO,
IPA,
Accountable Care
or whatever
Organization.
you call
Yes.
those things. Yeah. And so there could be things that they aren't aware of, or maybe they didn't look clearly at their agreements as to what the rates are going to
Mm,
be. So, I mean, but usually you get a higher rate. You get that's the reason you go into those arrangements is so you can get better rates. But at the end of the
right.
day, you have to do some looking around. But yes, they don't have the final say. It is up to you to make the changes that you need to make. And if they are paying you less than they're supposed to, go after them. Don't let
Yeah.
it stand. You
Right.
can use that as a way to get out of your contract or demand payment according to the contractual rate. So make sure you're not letting those things go. You have somebody that has the knowledge to do that, or use technology. There's a lot of great tools out there. A lot of EMRs already have this technology set up if you have a really good one that can pull out, once you have the contracted rates in your system, it can pull out claims that are paid.
Right.
So it's a really quick way for you to do that. So, all right, myth
Yeah.
number 3. If a claim is denied, it's always because the service wasn't covered. Well, we already know that's false, right? There's lots of reasons. Oh, it's not
Yes.
covered. The patient owes the money. No, no, no. You always want
No,
to check.
no.
I see so many people just billing the patient. And I'm like, why'd you bill the patient? This is a prior authorization. You're not allowed, or prior authorization denial. You dropped the ball.
Right.
And so
Right.
you're not charging your patient for that.
And I think, and this kind of goes back to our structure of how we train offices, is one, understanding the revenue cycle. Once you
Mhm.
understand the entire revenue cycle and the compliance that's associated with the revenue cycle, whether it be regulation that's related to HIPAA, contractual obligations, and third party liability, which would be the secondary payer or the patient, right? And then understanding, one, how this all translates to the explanation of benefits when it comes to the denial, right? If you don't understand all of the components of the revenue cycle, you're not going to understand the reason for the denial. That's just that's just fact, right?
Yes,
But once you have that contract whisperer, right, and be diligent, and if it was underpaid, that's going to make the difference in the increase in the revenue. And that's the approach that we use with Fox Valley Medical Associates on how this all transpires and how this is very relevant. That's how they were able to determine a deficit, right, that needed to be addressed, and that increased revenue significantly, right? But you got to have that person that can understand, interpret, and relay that information.
exactly. And I was thinking about the primary care audit that I recently did for another client. And it was interesting to me. I don't do primary care as much as I do ortho, but I am starting to do more of it lately. And I feel like it's actually pretty enjoyable, like digging into some of the nuances of the chronic conditions. And just something as simple as like, here, if this was my chart and I looked at this, what would I have to say as a patient? So for instance, the difference between telling me what the chronic condition is and not telling me what you're going to do about it. Like something as simple as that. It's the status of chronics. Remember back in like the old E&M days where one of the elements was the status of 3 chronics? Like that was
Yes.
one of the that we looked at, right? So to
Yeah.
me, like part of that is still kind of meshed into the new guidelines that we use, because it's not just about that they have it. What are you going to do about it? Because if you didn't
Right.
address it, it's problems addressed. So I'm like, I can't count it if you didn't address it. And
Right.
so these are education moments. Or
Right.
when you have a blanket template that, this is what crazy to me is like some of these EMR systems really hurt these providers, is where they have this blanket statement template under every lab, and it's the exact same statement and it's nothing to do with that lab. And it's like, what are you talking about? Like, this makes no sense. So,
Oh
I
my
mean, that's the
gosh.
stuff, that it's education moment for documentation,
Right.
but it's also an education moment for your team who implemented this EMR system. Contact the vendor and say, hey, this is a problem.
And I think that goes back to the EMR optimization as we were speaking about earlier. EMR optimization for the flow of your office, right? Do not use templates that's for a procedure for your E&M services. That's not going to work. That's not optimization. So if you have an EMR system, right, make sure it's customized for the flow of your practice. And if it's not, make sure you have a contact at that EMR vendor that can make sure that they can implement those things or dispatch someone who can. Because if you don't understand how your EMR works, you cannot optimize your revenue. Period. And that goes back to understanding medical necessity and the reasons for denial. Using a zoo code for a sick visit. That doesn't work because why? A zoo code says that it's a general examination. If they're sick, it's not general, it's a focused examination. So those types of things need to be addressed and optimized for workflows in your practice.
Absolutely. Okay, guys, number 4. Payer audits only happen if there's something wrong with your claims.
Eh, eh.
False. Wrong again. So there's random audits, right? There's focused audits, there's random audits. I mean, look at, like, I had actually had a guest on the podcast several podcasts ago who was in behavioral health, and it was a great conversation. I remember her saying this, that when you look at large organizations that are just large in general, they're going to be high claim submitters. Like, they're just going to have high volume. They are already on the radar of like the OIG and payer audits because of their volume, just sheer volume.
Yep. Yep.
And then there's inconsistent billing practices that they don't know that it's wrong. You're on their radar because you're suspicious.
Right. Right. I mean, and the Target Probe and Educate program was just that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because the Target Probe and Educate was the Medicare program just to see how providers were doing based upon some of the most common billed irregularly or incorrectly services. But it wasn't necessarily because your claim was wrong. It was because they wanted to see and provide education based upon that program. And a lot of the providers who typically bill high dollar amounts like infectious disease, pulmonary, were focused because they were billing high dollars, but it was the nature of their practice because they had patients who were typically very sick. It didn't mean that they did anything wrong. It was just an opportunity for them to communicate with you and for you to communicate with them about what they saw and what could possibly be wrong with the documentation once reviewed.
Right. And see, audits are a good thing. I mean, you want to be a transparent organization, I would imagine. So don't be afraid of an audit, just be prepared for it.
Right.
So internal audits are great. And one thing I thought about a little, especially in these, smaller practices, they really don't have anyone sometimes that's knowledgeable enough to even do an internal audit. Like there isn't,
Yes.
like, they don't even know where to start. And so
Right.
they definitely don't have the resources. So they will probably need to reach out to an external auditor. But if you can have somebody, yes, like us, if you can have somebody internally in a large organization, you should have someone that's knowledgeable enough and not someone doing the coding themselves. You don't
Right.
want the coder auditing their own work. That's just counterproductive. And so you want to make sure that it's somebody that's not in that department that has the knowledge. Usually hospitals have an actual department for that, but if you don't, you can reach out for an external audit. You got to have some kind of audit, whether it's internal, external, or both. So just make sure you do that, because myth number 5, guys, is about one of those red flags that puts you on the radar. And it is that modifier 59 is always needed when billing for separate procedures.
No.
Did you hear that, guys? That's a no. Modifier 59, guys. Do not abuse it. We're having a good old time over here. I love it. So, guys, we're just like, we're giddy. We're delirious because of this modifier and the one that is in myth number 6, which we'll talk about in a minute. But it is only, and I mean only, for procedure to procedure bundles. It is not just to bypass an edit. Do you understand the edit? Before you slap on a 59, you better understand why you're doing it.
Yes.
I've been a fly on the wall in many practices, and I just want to crawl under the table when I hear an office manager say, just put a 59 and it'll get paid. And how do they know that? They don't know it's going to get paid. They might be able to say it'll bypass it, but that's a temporary fix. That's a Band-Aid.
It really is. And I think
That's
that
going to
really
get
goes
wet in the
back.
shower, and it's going to come off.
Girl,
Telling you
you're killing me over here.
You ever had a Band-Aid that you forgot was on your finger or something, and you're in the shower and it just falls off? It's no longer protecting you.
Oh my gosh, I love that analogy.
Isn't it awesome? Like, I love it too. But no, I thought about that. I'm like, that's what a Band-Aid does, right? It protects you.
Yeah.
It's supposed to help you heal, right? And so if it's not doing its job, it's useless to you.
Right.
And so the same thing with the modifier 59 that's misplaced, it's useless to your organization, and it's actually hurting you. It's creating risk.
And you know what? And to add to that, Jennifer, I mean, that's why we talked about this in a couple of episodes. It's using the NCCI edits and making sure that it's part of your EMR system, right?
Yes.
If you don't have an EMR system that has an NCCI edit, guess what? You could still do it manually.
Oh, yeah.
There are many encoders that have that function that you can use to help you identify when a modifier is needed. And even going back to the policies, Jennifer.
Yeah.
If a payer says that you need to append it, then it's payer specific. It is not NCCI specific. So NCCI edits really are specific to Medicare, but there are certain policies that require for you to do certain things because that's what they want. Like Blue Cross and Blue Shield wants the AS modifier instead of the 80s modifiers when there's an assistant to procedure. That's policy specific. So you have to really understand, you have to have a payer whisperer, a contract whisperer who understands all these different things to make sure you could get paid. And be diligent about making sure why you could get paid.
Exactly.
That's all.
Well, let's dig in number 6 because it's 59's cousin, modifier 25, the bad boy. You have like those two cousins. One's kind of under the radar, and the other one's like flat out in your face, bad boy. Yeah. And that's what modifier 25 is. Shout out to Sunil Patel. It's one of our favorite things to call it is the bad boy.
Right.
So it is used to indicate that a significant separately identifiable E&M was performed on the same day as the procedure in that order. Because what we forget is that the E&M is always a maybe. As soon as a procedure enters the scene, the E&M becomes a maybe. It's never an automatic because the only reason you'll get it is if it's appropriate. So the myth is you can use it whenever.
I lost your audio, Jennifer. I can't hear you now. There you
go. Just because the multiple visit diagnoses are on the claim does not mean, excuse me, I said that wrong. Just because multiple issues are on the claim does not mean that it's payable because it's about the work. It's about what you did.
I call it the E&M Snellen test. If you could cover the procedure and you could still see the E&M being medically necessary, then it works, and vice versa. But even if there's something that goes above and beyond, they call it evaluation and management for a reason on the same day as a procedure, right? If you aren't able to see them both and they aren't addressing specific things that are significant to that problem, you should not bill it. If your provider is billing a 99212 and it's a procedure, then 9 times out of 10 you don't need that 212 on that procedure, because
Right.
most exams are intricate to the day of the procedure to make sure you still need it. So,
Yes. And I'm not saying you're not going to get a 99212 or level 2 with a 25 modifier at a procedure, but it's very likely that it's not medically necessary if it's that low of a visit. And I remember an actual podcast with Sean Weiss, the compliance guy, mentioning that very fact. And I totally agree. And when I'm auditing, I'm like very hesitant to give them that. I mean, I will look at it if it's truly, truly they did something separate, but it's very rare for it to even be, billable. It has to be so like in your face, like this is important, right? But most of the time it's not going to get you there. So you're better off just billing the procedure. Now, myth number 7. If a claim is denied, you shouldn't bother submitting it again. Just let it go. Right, Maya?
oh no,
You're dead in the
no.
water just the one time.
Jeez. You know, I hmm. A lot of times, the way that claims are submitted, there's a way for you to let the payer know that it's a corrected claim, right? Even if you correct the claim, you could still resubmit it, right? A lot of times the information might be incorrect or there was something wrong, but if you are resubmitting the claim with corrections, you're able to resubmit it and they can adjudicate it because you told them it was a corrected claim, right? I'm just saying, a lot of times it's about knowledge. Knowledge is power. Knowledge is revenue. Revenue is resources. So if you're able to connect the dots to understand why you need to resubmit a claim, then do it, right? Because a lot of times they can adjudicate it and they've already sent you the denial. So you've already resubmitted because you know that it's going to be, a corrected claim. So you just tell them and they'll pay it or they'll consider it for payment based upon what you submitted.
Right. And then myth number 8, a claim denial can't be overturned. I think 7 and 8 kind of go together because you should always investigate the reason for the denial. And you should understand why it denied, because you have every right to resubmit it if it is denied and you feel it's correct. And it can be overturned, and it has been overturned many times because the payer has realized their system isn't perfect, which it's not.
Yeah. Yes.
They call them the
Oh.
smart. They're not very smart, are they? I don't think.
No. Well, you know what? And if you have the right payer, Medicare, Blue Cross Blue Shield, they'll acknowledge when something was paid incorrectly, and they'll automatically go back and reprocess everything that was done with that claim. But it also goes to the onus of understanding the electronic remittance devices or the EOBs, right? To understand, if it was paid correctly or not. If you get a zero pay EOB on a $100,000 payment, guess what? Those zero pays are just as important as that payment that you're posting. But you have to go through them. You have to look at them. If you don't look at them, you'll never know why you won't get paid. But if you're like looking everything to be audio and nope, 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 you're going to miss money every day, always, every time.
And on Sunday.
Twice on Sunday.
Twice on Sunday. Well, and then here's number 9, guys. Claims are automatically paid if the codes are correct.
Nope.
Not true. Again. So even if you have everything right, you're still going to get a denial, guys. I'm sorry. It's the nature of the game. It does happen, even if everything's correct, because sometimes it's not a matter of everything being correct. It's a system error, or it is maybe what we perceived was correct.
I mean, again, those NCCI edits, that coder that you should be able to get when your revenue is appropriate, not having the doctors code everything. Because we've seen literally firsthand where the interpretation behind what a code does and the reason behind a modifier can be so butchered that you may not even know that it's incorrect, right? So I think it's important to realize that if those resources are extremely not only viable but valuable to your practice. Yeah.
Right. So if you hire a coder, you'll probably see pretty quickly if they have the experience that they claim to have. But have you ever played the game Telephone, where you whisper something in someone's ear and then by the time they get to like the 10th person, it's completely different? Sometimes that can happen when you hire someone who came from other organizations,
You
because
killing me,
they
girl.
have, I'm telling you, they have had this little whisper, this office manager whisper in their ear from various locations, and they all told them something different. Maybe it started out accurate, but over time it got to the point where they were told pieces of something that eventually now are affecting your revenue because that person wasn't paying attention or didn't hear the right information.
Or what about this one, Jennifer? I was at a seminar, or I was at a conference, and they said, "Let me see that. Let me
Oh
see.
my
Let me
goodness.
see your PowerPoint. Let me see who
Yes.
wrote it." Oh,
That
okay.
happened actually in an audit, an orthopedic audit. The physician went to the AMA conference and they had a slide, it's on the slide deck, and they misinterpreted it. So again, I did not discount that they heard what they heard. I'm sure it was said, but it was misinterpreted.
We lost audio again, Jen.
What we're dealing with, right? So
Yeah, I mean, I think it's so important that the what's the word? Lost in translation, right? Lost in translation. But the goal of the coder, right, is to translate what was heard. If you have a coder that's certified and they know what they're doing and they're understanding revenue cycle management, those types of conferences, those things that the AMA has, those specialty specific identifiers, right, or the conferences, those make the difference on how and what your revenue will outcome will be. Because if you think that it's right and you proceed with it like it's right and it's wrong, you're thinking you're going to get all this revenue, and guess what? Thanks for playing. We have lovely parting gifts for you, but these claims are denied. Sorry about
CNAP.
that.
Yes, exactly. And they had every right to do it because you violated the policy. So we're here to talk about the myths, guys. The last myth, number 10, is outsourcing your RCM means losing control over operations. Now, that is not necessarily true. I mean, it can be true in some cases because some people have lost control over operations by choosing the wrong partner. But outsourcing can be a great benefit because in a lot of cases, it does save you money. You have a higher return because you have people that have been trained and then can take over some services, not all services, but some. And so you can look at doing that. So again, I want to say with the right technology and the right partner, outsourcing can be a great benefit depending on where you outsource to and what you outsource.
Right. And I also think that if it's a good outsourcing company, they'll provide you with the reports. They'll provide you with information regarding why claims are denied. And there will be a fluid communication process regarding your revenue and what's missing, what's not missing. I think there are a lot of organizations out there who claim that they provide all these services. And even with the OIG, they require for you to have a compliance plan. So they should not only be running your claims compliantly, but they themselves need to be compliant, and that is part of being transparent when it comes to the partnerships.
Yes, in your partnership, ask them for their compliance plan. And if you're having to go to them to ask for a report, then you have a problem. They should be
Yep.
coming to you.
Yep.
So
Hmm.
watch for that if that doesn't happen. So that's it, guys. 10 myths we've dispelled today. We also wanted to, before we go and say goodbye, we wanted to give you an update on what our upcoming events are. So the newest event we just announced was our General Surgery Coding Summit on June 6th. It's all virtual. Now, I have not had this event in 3 years, and it was just like, oh my goodness, we haven't done this event in 3 years. We did some outreach, and people are all excited about it. All you general surgery coders, this is for you. And this is specifically a coding summit, so it's all about coding. It's an all-day seminar on coding for general surgery, and so if you're general surgery, you're going to love it. And then, of course, we have been announcing that on July 17th and 18th, we have our annual Bone and Joint Summit for orthopedics. Remember, day one is all for administrators, billing professionals, the revenue side. And then day two is for coders and physicians. We want coders and physicians to have their day. They need to be connected and they need to really just network together and really come to understand the documentation and coding together. That's their day. And we have 3 physician speakers lined up. We have so much to tell you guys over the next month. Our speaker list will drop next month, so stay tuned for that. And that's it, guys. Thank you so much for joining today, and we'll look forward to talking about more. We have a double episode this week, so we'll be back on Wednesday to talk about burnout. So we will see you then, guys. Thank you.